Okay, I shall start now. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Rufiza, the Senior Manager of Membership and Strategic Partnership BMCC. Hope everyone is keeping safe and well. Welcome to BMCC's series of webinars on the impact of COVID-19 pandemic and RMCO to businesses. The topics for this webinar series are based on the responses we received from the recent survey we conducted on the implication of COVID-19 to businesses. These are topics that the respondents say they needed most advice on. Today, we are pleased to collaborate with Endeavour Malaysia on the theme Post-Crisis Business Landscape. How do we navigate through it? This session aims to discuss the present challenges on the sudden changes in the practice of management due to the upheaval created by COVID-19 pandemic. Therefore, our speakers will be sharing on how they adapt, manage, and motivate their teams during this crisis. Joining us as speakers today from BMCC, we have David Ng, who is the Managing Director of International SOS and also the Deputy Chairman of BMCC. As from Endeavour Malaysia, we have Chen Chow Yeoh, who is the co-founder of Fave and also one of the respective mentors from Endeavour Malaysia. This session will be moderated by Calvin Wu, who is in charge of Entrepreneur Selection and Growth Endeavour Malaysia. Before I pass over to the moderator, just a note. If you have any questions to ask during the session, please submit your questions via the Q&A function, not the chat box. It's available right at the bottom bar, if you can see. So without further ado, I would like to pass the session to Calvin. Right over to you, Calvin.
Thank you so much, Fee, for the introduction. Hi, everybody. I'm Calvin. I'm from the Entrepreneur Selection and Growth team here at Endeavour Malaysia. So we are very delighted to collaborate with BMCC on discussing about this topic about post-crisis business landscape. How do we navigate through it? Just a quick introduction about Endeavour. So Endeavour is a global entrepreneur support organization that is present in 37 markets globally. And our mission is to catalyze growth in the economies by helping high-impact entrepreneurs by giving them access to mentorship, talent, capital, and market. And in Malaysia, currently, we are supporting 42 companies across different industries, such as Farm Fresh Milk, Custom, Fashion Ballet, and iHandle. So, and we are constantly on a search of high-impact companies here in Malaysia. And today, on the note of support, we are really glad to collaborate with BMCC, who provides and facilitate access to networking opportunities for entrepreneurs locally. And one of the things that we recognize as ecosystem players as we navigate through in Malaysia is that this particular crisis has suddenly changed many of the management practices and also changed the market landscape, not only in Malaysia but globally as well. And it leaves entrepreneurs at a place where they find it they were struggling to navigate through it. And now, as we are moving into a phase of recovery, how would and there were a lot of talks about the new normal, but there wasn't any answer about how the new normal would look like. And today we are really glad to have Chen Chow and also David to share their perspective on how the new normal will look like. So just jumping right straight into our question, Chen Chow, what do you think the new normal for business would look like?
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. So I'm Chen Chow, just call me CC. So I think in terms of the new normal, I think as we go through, right? So I think that for Malaysia, that we have gone through about 3 months, right? So I think from the March 16, the Prime Minister announcement, March 18, MCO started, and then I think as we go through May 4th, when we moved to CMCO, and then eventually we went into RMCO. So I think as we go through each of those things, I think a lot of it is, I think, adapting, right? So I think no one knows exactly how it's going to be. So let's say we were to ask that, let's say we'll ask everyone standing in February this year, which is not too long ago, 4 months ago. Would you ever imagine that we all were, the whole country, or rather the whole world, stuck at home for several weeks or months, right? So I think that is a sort of something. I think that many people may have done your annual planning early this year. And I am quite sure that almost no company has ever predicted that the business environment will be like this, right? So I think that sort of have shifted. So I think as we go through this new normal, I think we are all part of this to shape it. So let's say that this weekend, Father's Day, how will people celebrate it? Will people go out? Will people stay at home? How will people do it, right? And I think every part of it, different people will be adapting differently. And I think the key is like on the lookout, on the observing. I think like for businesses side, we observe like by different hours how people react to it, whether people go. I think when we first CMCO first started, so where people started going by early lunch or late lunch, slowly people go during proper lunchtime, then they go to the early dinner before they go more dinner time. So I think this will be going through the adaptation, and I think people will be agile to get through that.
Yeah. Chen, you pointed out something that is really key here, that this particular crisis has shifted the consumer behavior and also the market demand. David, in your opinion, what do you think that the new normal would look like, with this shift of consumer behavior and the market demand?
I think to go back to normal, to pre-COVID crisis, I think we need to have a vaccine. Before that, I think the new normal will be pretty much of how a lot of companies are trying to adapt and conduct their business digitally, working from home. I think this will be the new normal until a vaccine is found.
Yeah.
So that's what International SOS has been doing, actually quite successfully. Getting people to work from home, leveraging on the various technology to stay in touch, continue to engage with our customers digitally, and I think this will be there for quite some time.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you so much for your input, David. And you pointed out something that is very crucial in terms of the companies need to adapt technology, and they use and they engage their customer digitally as well. So from an entrepreneur's perspective, Chen Chow, perhaps in your experience in leading Fave, what were some of the challenges that you have to face in leading an organization through that period, given that Fave is a digital merchant platform, and how should entrepreneurs think about and be agile enough in leading their organization through all these changes?
So I think the good question that I think like one of it is I think that as the crisis happened, right, or the pandemic happened, I think that take a bit, let's say like in mid-March, I think a lot of it was thinking, okay, now we need to accept the reality that okay, the new norm is going to be here. I think that right now maybe everyone is sort of knowing that okay, the new norm is here. But I think that the accepting the new norm is here, I think mindset, I think is shifting to the team, right? So I think when we first announced to stay at home, I think the time the country announced it 2 weeks. So a lot of people were like, okay, like 2 weeks at home, 2 weeks later I'll be back, everything normal, right? And I think at the time, no one really think of like it's going to be multiple extensions, right? So I think that time before every second wave, everything. So I think the mindset of everyone, alignment, and I think also as you deal with the employees as well, I think like for us, we also found that basically maybe put in the two groups, right? So I think there's one group that would, let's say starting in February, March, that time, one group will say, okay, actually this is overreaction, nothing, right? This is too soon, nothing much, we are just overreacting. And there's another group that say, no, we all should already stop working, stop going to the office, everyone should still stay at home and that. So and I think in the organization, there will likely will be two groups of people, and likely there will be a lot of people in between. So I think the key is, and each of those, it's not like they're bad or anything, it's just that everyone has a different perspective due to their lifestyle, due to their family background, due to their upbringing, right? So let's say like example, there are people that were a lot more worried because they might have small children at home, or their parents or elderly at home, or maybe they have certain family members that have gone through previous viruses before. Right? So then they'll be a lot more cautious. And then maybe there are people who are like in their 20s, like always going out. It's like, hey, why you're trying to do this, right? Just give me my freedom, right? So I think it's adapting to it. And I think as we now reopening, I think when May 4th, when it's reopening, restaurants can start dining in, we were wondering, would the restaurant be suddenly full or maybe not? And I think what we see is people gradually going up, right? I think people gradually get adapted to it. And I think that as we go on right now, is that there are certain places that are very empty, certain places that are actually packed, and you, let's say Mid Valley or Gardens, you go there at meal time, sometimes you can't get a seat, right? So there will be different kind of norms as you go in. So I think as you go through the theme is that getting through adaptation. So let's say right now, the government has already allowed gatherings of 250 people. Would you do it? How do you make sure that the norm is handled well, SOP is handled well, while you be able to gradually get to that point? So I think in every parts of the organizations get used to it. I think like in the States as well, some of the companies have announced work from home until December.
Yeah.
Would you or would you not? So I think like for us, what we have announced is like at least for these few weeks, people can have their options. They can come to office or they can choose not to come to office. Like today, our office has 4 people turn up. Right? So we actually give full flexibility to people to decide. So 4 people out of 250 people in our office here.
Okay. Thank you so much for sharing. So I think Chen Chow, you touched on a lot of great points about, how can entrepreneurs adapt to the external changes and also to the internal organizational changes as well. As as entrepreneurs, they have to lead their organization through to navigate the external environment and internally the changes as well. So David, could you share, given your previous experience in the logistics industry and also right now in the medical security service, so what were some of the measures that you took to adapt to this transition?
I think, firstly, of course, when you get people to work from home, it's a different environment for them. And we need to keep them motivated, and we need to make sure that they are continue to be engaged, and therefore good communication, regular communication is more important than ever to make sure that our people stay in touch. And secondly, we also need to recognize that some of these employees with a new environment, it may cause them a lot of stress that that they need help with. Here I'm talking about mental health. Even WHO has reported that during this crisis, 30% of there was a 30% of the population that suffered from mental health as a result of this crisis. So I think our people are not immune, and therefore one of the measures that we implemented was to have EAP hotline whereby employees and their family members can call in to seek counseling from professionals. So that's one measure we have taken internally for our employees. Then for the external, which is also very important, right? We need to keep the business going during this crisis. And specifically for international SOS, a big part of our business was to take care of international business travelers. But when borders are closed, when business are shut down, there's no more international travelers to take care of. So what do? You have to pivot to the new norm, and instead of taking care of international business travelers, now we have to look at taking care of domestic employees. And also leveraging on our expertise. What are the new services that we can offer to our clients? And this would involve helping them cope with the current crisis. From a medical company, we are able to provide medical advice to our clients. What type of testing required for their employees when they return to work, for example, and the screening that we have conducted for our clients, transit centers, quarantine centers that we supported them. We support a lot of oil and gas industries, and therefore oil and gas have very strict health and safety guidelines. And one of the measures that we took to help our clients before they go offshore is to manage their quarantine center for 14 days for the crew before they are safe to go offshore. So we really need to pivot our business to the new norm.
Thanks so much for sharing on that, David. You have pointed really rightly on employee engagement, and also on how it is important to regularly communicate with your employees in order to keep them engaged. And I think one point that you touched on was really good, was about mental health. I think that's one thing that many people miss out in the conversation, that they often talk about the physical health and not the mental health. So I think on that note, right, to both of you guys, do you think work from home is here to stay? Because people talk about future of work. There was a huge conversation about future of work, that employees can work anywhere in the world, and then all of a sudden this movement control order sort of accelerated the whole process. Do you think work from home is here to stay or not here to stay? Perhaps you can start from Chen Chow.
Yeah, so I think that the answer will be maybe somewhat in between, right? So I think there will be more companies, especially the early stage companies. Let's say imagine you just a startup, you just build up. Back then you sometimes you go get the office space, right? But today I think people will slow down that process. The people may only really going to get office space much later.
Yeah.
I think the other one is that I think we have seen the tendency as well where biz dev, especially the sales team that go out a lot of meetings, they would not have office space. So I think we have done that for our Singapore Indonesia office, where we actually closed down spaces in office to save rental. We were on co-working space, so it was easy for us to shift that spacing. So we basically, so that the salespeople pay per entry to co-working space whenever they need office. Because back then, we actually paid for them in the office, even though they may go in maybe 1-2 times a week, right? Whenever they do. So I think now it's better to just pay per entry kind of thing, right? So that's another direction that I think we see. And I think I think for co-working space as well, pay per entry doesn't mean that you have to take out cash to pay. Basically, it's just a recording into it, and then it can still be a month-end billing or through the cashless payment. So I think that could be one of the shifting. I think that I don't foresee fully work from home because I think there are still the human touch. I think that if you do meetings, I think quick catch up, initial explorations, updates, I think via video and all this kind of thing works quite well. But I think that if you want to do extensive discussions, you want to just map out the plan where people can feel it and everything, I think face-to-face is still better.
Okay.
So I think that's sort of how I personally see it.
David, what about you? Given that International SOS is a very large organization, how would you see the working arrangement would change? Given that that most of your employees will have to work from home during MCO, do you think that it is here to stay?
Yeah, I think so. I think even before COVID, a lot of companies are already exploring working from home, and also the flexibility of employees coming in at certain times, allowing them to manage their own time, how much they want to work from office and how much they want to work from home.
Yeah.
But of course, companies are a bit cautious in allowing everyone to work from home because of impact on productivity, etc. But this MCO has demonstrated to a lot of companies that actually working from home does work. And therefore, I think the new normal will be companies are more relaxed in allowing employees to work from home. But I also agree with Faye that perhaps not all the time, because teamwork is still important. Face-to-face catch-up is important. And I think companies would have part of the time working from home and part of the time working from office. And for example, International SOS, we are looking at the ideas of maybe a minimum of 2 days of working in office and the rest of the time working from home. And by doing so, a lot of companies, let's not forget this, real estate cost is one of the biggest fixed costs for a lot of companies. And if you are only working 2 days a week from office, you can virtually cut down your office real estate space by half and your operating cost by half. And for many companies, this is too attractive to bypass. Companies in the new normal needs to be agile. They need to be agile, to be lean, and getting rid of half your real estate space is a very attractive proposition.
Yeah, David, you made a really good point that the entrepreneurs, they will have to be agile. So let's double click into that. So I think in order to be agile, there are some core capabilities that an organization would have to build in order to adapt quickly. And I think not only from the management side, but also from the organization out as well. So I think Chen, Chow, what do you think are some of the core capabilities that a business can build to be more agile and to be more resilient?
Yeah, I think one is, the mindset, right? I think setting the right mindset and expectation. So I think a lot of it is that I think today's, especially the younger folks, when they work today, they want to know why. I think they are no longer the generation where if you say do A, they do A, right? I think maybe our parent generation, some of them are doing that, but I think a lot of younger folks today, they will be quite comfortable to be be asking like, why are we doing this? What's the rationale? I don't agree and whatnot, right? And I think that where, let's say for us, we actually make it like very flexible, where basically open mindset for the team, right? Where one of the things is that the team doesn't have to do anything unless they believe in it, right? So of course there is pros cons on that mindset as well, because for some people they'll be like, okay, it's harder to, so I can't go out there and just say, okay, now we all have to do it this way, because we actually have to spend quite a bit of time to align and convince people. But I think that also is a process to enable people to think on it. I think the other one on the agile everything is that enable people the freedom or flexibility to innovate. Because a lot of times people doing something because they think that, okay, no matter what I suggest, it doesn't matter anyway. Or if I said it, I may offend people. So you need to create a safe environment for people to know that they can make it simpler, easier, better, faster. So I think a lot of time is we want them, the team, to basically think on the end outcomes, think on the target audience, whether merchant, consumer, or internal clients that we serve, and how to make sure that that is set there, right? And I think with the core values, guiding principles that align to it, and our actions that tie to that, right? So because if we want people to be flexible, we can't be rigidly saying, okay, you need to clock in at 9 o'clock. Because if you do it, then it counters. So I think basically, we need to look at it holistically to make sure that the whole part of it. Because I think today, most people are digitally savvy, right? Yeah. Especially, I think that on the consumer side today, everyone, let's say that Zoom, or doing all this video call, most people have never done this that much pre-COVID. During that 1-2 weeks of COVID, first 2 weeks, I think everyone adopt all these kind of things. Yes. Right? And even if you think of outside of work, people that who doesn't know how to cook, a lot of people became PhD of cooking after a few weeks of staying at home, right? So people will adapt to it. So I think we are all human beings good at it. So I think in the end, it's just provide the platform for that.
Brilliant. So I think Chen Chow, you pointed out something really good about mindset. And I think that, in order to navigate through that, to be agile, mindset is really important. David, what is your opinion on that? How can entrepreneurs, develop that, or organization, build that capability for them to be agile, to changes?
Yeah, I think it's both the organization as well as people needs to be agile, right? For organization, for me, I think organization should not be carrying a lot of fixed costs. You cannot be agile if you are burdened with a lot of fixed costs, and this fixed cost needs to be paid for during a crisis like COVID. So being agile means to have a very lean setup. So that all the variable costs can be reduced accordingly. A company also need to be agile to adapt to market, right? If a particular business is not doing well because of the crisis, then we have to be agile enough to shift to other customer demands accordingly. So companies needs to be agile, to have the vision to adapt quickly, and the workforce needs to be agile. That means that people must change their mindset. They must be able to multitask. They must start to learn and relearn to do different tasks, so that if that particular work is no longer required, instead of being made redundant, you will be recognized as being able to do other things to support the company. So individuals also need to be to change their mindset to be able to multitask and do other things.
Thanks for sharing on that, because it's really interesting that that both of you shared that mindset is really important, and I think that fundamentally that the mindset by the organization, and I think also by the people, not only the top management but also the employees as well, in order to be successful in navigating through these changes. But I think from the leader's perspective, how should the leaders communicate to their people about the changes that is going through in the organization and also in the market? Because I think that there are a lot of fears and there are a lot of anxiety, especially when there are a lot of changes happening either within the organization or externally outside the organization. So, in your experience leading, David, you lead International SOS, and Chen Chow leading Fave, what are some of your experiences in how do you communicate to your people? David, what was your experience like?
I think the key word here is communication, right?
Yeah.
If there are changes, we need to communicate upfront with the people as soon as possible. And it's best to get their buy-in, why the change is needed, and to get their inputs to make the change successful. So I think it's all about communication, and communication, right? When we are doing a change, and to be as transparent as possible with the people, right? We need to be transparent. If we are making a change, what is the impact going to be on the employees? They need to know, and the more transparent we are, and then the more acceptable the change is going to be. And during this crisis, I think a lot of companies are making a lot of changes, and some of these changes will impact the employees. And therefore, the key message here is to tell the employees that whatever change we are doing is to ensure the long-term sustainability of the business, and to ensure that as many jobs as possible are secured. And that is the objective,
Brilliant.
And I think if we are frank with the employees about our objective, then I think the change will be easier to manage.
That's a really good point on focusing on the end goal, and I think that having that leadership, to emphasize on that end goal will be very important to navigate through those changes. Chen, what was your experience like?
Yeah, so I think I echo what some of the points that David brought in: transparency, frankness. I think the way we do it is, I think, showing people with data, right? So I think it's, for example, like during as the MCO progress, I think our team knows on an hourly basis, daily basis, like on how the change has hit us, right? So how the business has dropped on 18 March versus 17 March, right, on the first day of MCO. So I think transparency where the team knows the thing, and I think actually the team will come to us and say, hey, business like this, should we do pay cut or not? Maybe we should do it, right? So people actually, a lot of them, people understand on it. And I think as we go through those aspects as well, is be very clear. So I think as we do the pay cut, we actually tell the team exactly when the pay cut will be removed. And the when is not by when, but what performance. So the team knows that what kind of sales figure, once we hit that amount, the pay cut will be removed. Right, and that could be next week, next month, 3 months, 6 months, or longer, depends on how the market and us, right? So, but we define the exact point, right? So that people know that where to look forward to. And I think one thing interesting was our team actually internally, they built a tracker, which we eventually showcase to the whole company, okay, where we are in that tracker, right? How have we moved through? Because I think that enables people to know, okay, that's where we are. Can we anticipate it? Is it this month, next month, 3 months, whatnot? So I think make it super clear to them. Like, let's say we actually define to the team and say, okay, if our business is from 0 to 30%, this would be the cut. If we're 30 to 60%, this will be like this. 60 to 80% will be like this. 80% will be back to normal for everyone. So I think define those kind of things. And then if you are team leaders, you'll be these numbers cut. And if you're team members, will be like this. So I think if people know it, I think beyond those things, the other one is empathy. I think a lot of it is, I would divide these things into 2 parts, right? So I think one is a logical. What decision to take? What are the things that needed to be done? Right? So there'll be tough decision, hard decision. I think a few days ago we read about Grab had to do the 5% layoff. All those are very tough decisions, whether for big company, small companies. HSBC announced 25,000 people. So I think it affects across, right? But I think that the key is beyond the logical part of knowing what decision needs to be taken, is how to do it. Key is the word empathy, right? Imagine ourselves as our team members who were affected by it, whether the company had to pay cut, whether they do less work day, or whether you have to do furlough or do lay off. If you are on the receiving end, how do you want people to treat you? Right? If you are now not the one deciding, but you're the one being laid off, what do you think? You know the situation. What will make you feel that it's a fair decision and a fair way to communicate, the right way to communicate? Right? So I think it's put yourself into the other people's shoes. Because a lot of times people will look at it as a number, 5% people, 30 people. But that, while that's a number, but the key is to each person. That may affect their family livelihood. It may affect their relationship. it may affect many aspects, right? So I think that's one aspect. And like for us, as we do the pay cut as well, what we did is that among the leadership, we did pull in a bunch of money. And we basically telling the team that for the pay cut amount, if you need any help, let us know. We will personally, on a personal behalf, lend them money at a 0% interest. Right? So that's sort of separate the company part and the individual part. So the individual part, I think, lucky that our leaders will willing to step up and say to help people sustain through, and the amount that we can support for that is based on the cut, right? But of course, we tell them that we have this amount. It's not infinite amount. If you think you need this amount, then you can get it. But if you don't need it, let other people in the team that would need it, right? And I think we see the needy part. I think especially our colleagues in Indonesia, a lot of their family members also lost a job or get cuts or whatnot. So I think that understanding situations, and I think make sure that people don't abuse it, right? So I think that's sort of how I see it.
Okay. Thank you so much for sharing that insight, Chen. I know that sometimes it can be a very difficult situation to go through, where entrepreneurs will have to make a lot of difficult decisions, and also I think many leaders of the organization have to make that difficult decision in order to keep the business sustainable. So I think that going through changes can be a very difficult process for many people, and as individuals, right, some of the advice that we receive is to build a support network around ourselves. And I think that in the business context, how can entrepreneurs build an ecosystem for themselves to navigate through these changes, and what do you think are the roles of like Endeavour and also like BMCC in supporting entrepreneurs to navigate through these changes? David, perhaps if you could share with us some of the initiatives that was done by BMCC in supporting the members to navigate through this crisis.
Okay. BMCC have always been there for our members to support their businesses. It could be advocacy work to support a certain policy or to help business connect with each other, to support trade with British businesses, etc. Our focus has not shifted during this crisis, but the way we deliver have of course shifted to digital. So during this crisis, we have been helping members who are essential services to seek approval from MITI, for example, to operate, where they found challenges to do it themselves. We help clarify and update members on MCOs. There were a lot of regulations being issued, especially initially, and there was a lot of confusion. So we took we consulted the higher authorities in MITI and seek clarification on behalf of our members. We also conduct a lot of webinars on topics of interest, especially how to cope with the crisis. And we have various committees by sectors, education, oil and gas, constructions. So our members will be very interested to learn from their colleagues in the same industry on how they are coping during this crisis. For example, the schools were badly impacted by the crisis, right? Children are not allowed to go back to school, and they are all learning from home. There are a lot of best practices they can share among each other. Now, the other challenge is how do you return back to school safely, right? Yes, the government have issued certain guidelines, but how do you actually implement it when the children are back in school? So the committee are doing great work in that space, and therefore any of our members who are in those particular industry can compare notes and share with each other. So we are one of the largest business chambers in Malaysia, and honestly, for a very small membership fee per annum, there is much to be gained to be a member.
Really, thank you so much for sharing, David. I think that you pointed out really rightly in having that network to have peer support and to share best practices with each other who is from the same industry as well. Chen Chow, you have been involved with the Endeavour mentoring process. Even though you were leading Fave, and could you share with us, what are the importance of entrepreneurs, to build that support for themselves?
So I think for myself, I think have been involved in Endeavour for the last few years, I think through different events or activities like this. So I think that for me, I think looking at what I think the entrepreneur standpoint, I think a lot of entrepreneurs, especially tech startups, are still loss-making business, right? So I think when this COVID hit, basically it affects significantly on many of the startups. So I think because in a startup, usually a fundraising cycle, you raise for 18 months or so. And I think when this hits basically, especially for those businesses that were hit by the revenue were hit significantly, I think that sort of caused quite a bit of the pain. So I think that where the organization like Endeavour, I think where they really put in place where the mentors across boards and within peers as well, I think helping each other. I think Endeavour did a session with Reid Hoffman as well, the CEO of LinkedIn, former CEO of LinkedIn, to share on how they look at it with a bunch of investors globally to look at it. So I think a lot of all these sessions eventually, I think, and that help through. And I think also the other one is an indirect network, right? An informal network. So I think a lot of entrepreneurs actually know each other. And I think off the direct formal platform, a lot of them are also learning with each other. And I think also a lot of mentoring sessions where it's a safe zone for the entrepreneurs to share what is the real challenge that we face, where I need the real frank help, right? Because a lot of entrepreneurs as well, let's say when your business is hit, a lot of people can't really go out there to speak, because if you go out there and tell everyone my business got affected, it may affect your next fundraising. It may affect the team, a lot of other factors, right? So I think a lot of it, you need a safe ground where you can talk about it. You can learn from people that have gone through previous crises, although every crisis of pandemic will be different. But I think people that may have a good advice to be able to provide, and then learning from other regions that maybe China, Korea that went through earlier. I think that's sort of how I see it.
Thanks so much for sharing, Chen Chow. I think that you have highlighted something that's really important, and as what David has highlighted, to have that peer support, and I think learning from each other's experiences, so that we know what are some of the best practices to navigate through the crisis, and I think also to learn how to navigate through the new norm as well. So I think that to a concluding remark that I think overall there is still a lot of unknown in the new normal. We can't hold a crystal ball saying that we have full clarity on what will happen in the next 1 to 2 years. But I think to sum up what we have discussed, I think that it is important for businesses to think about how can they take advantage of the crisis by being agile. So like what David has mentioned, in pivoting into new services, in pivoting into new customers segment. And I think that Chen Chow, you also mentioned something that is very important, that setting mindset and expectation is very important. And I think one more thing that was really important was communication will have to be transparent, and having that constant data will be able to define what was being said by the leaders of the organization. And I think the last point is empathy is very crucial in the whole process, because there are a lot of emotions that is involved. There are a lot of process that is involved in the change as well, not necessarily the organization, but as us humans, emotionally we are also going through changes as well. So so right now, thank you so much, David and Chen Chow, for sharing your wonderful insights on your experiences in navigating through your crisis, and also how will the new normal look like. So I think right now we will open up for Q&A. And I urge all the participants to drop in their questions in the Q&A function right at the bottom. And so we already have our first question in. So so it's directed to both David and Chen Chow. So the question is, with the flexibility of working from home for employees, what are some of the best practices to boost employee morale in order to ensure high productivity among the team? So perhaps either Chen Chow or David, either one of you can go first.
Okay, so maybe I'll start. Yeah, so I think getting the team morale through this fully work from home flexibility, I think is key. So I think that we experimented quite a bit of it where I think one of the things that we found useful is create a platform for people to just have socialize. Because I think back then in office, one of the things is people go take coffee break or whatnot where they can chit chat, right? And when they work from home, they couldn't. So I think what we did is we actually created chat rooms where if you feel like you need someone to chit chat for random non-work related, you can dial into those chat rooms, right? So I know that sometimes it sounds counterintuitive where you want people to fully focus on working, but I think you need to create an outlet for people, right? So I think it's just sort of like, okay, so you just go there, no one will judging you. If you need to find someone to chat, just go there and have a chat. We also do virtual breakfast, lunch, happy hour, and whatnot, right? So basically, put a time and it's not compulsory. If you feel like you need to find a few people to virtually eat breakfast together, you just go in there, right? Bring your own breakfast at your home, and then you just do it. I think and then let's say during Hari Raya first day, because we couldn't go visit people, we actually call a team meeting on Raya first day, optional again. But we basically got a bunch of team members who celebrate Hari Raya to do a video tour of their home. So six of our team members actually took the video, go and interview their parents, relatives, show us the kueh, show us the rendang that they're eating, ketupat, how they decorate their home and whatnot, right? So I think it's sort of informal way of getting everyone to get to know each other. So I think through that process, we actually get to see six of our colleagues their home. Right? So some of them get to go back to hometown, some didn't get to where they're lonely here. And I think it's a sort of reflection through. So I think we sort of try to create those kind of avenue for people, but there's no perfect way. And I think a lot also is like our team started a lot of things on their own as well. So I think like we started seeing people buying surprise lunch for the team members, gifting it out or whatnot, right? So I think that's another way. We did also another is lunch date, but it's a random one. So which means that we find team members that want to involve in this lunch date. Our team literally randomly allocate them into different rooms. So they will find in 4 people in that room. They were all random people in the office to go in and have a random chat.
Brilliant. David, what was your experience like? What was some of the best practices that you had in international SOS to boost employee morale when they were working from home?
Right. There are a few, and some are similar to what Chow has shared. For example, we conduct our town hall on a regular basis, and we always do that, especially after a big festive season. So this year, we were not able to have a physical town hall after Hari Raya, where usually we have a face-to-face sharing and then followed by lunch provided by the company. However, this time we couldn't do it, but we still did our town hall virtually. And the money we save for lunch, we actually give it as a green packet to each employee. And then we had a few quiz for prizes, and that was very well received by the employees, So we can still do things even though we don't do it physically today. Secondly is on the internet connections and other things that help employees work more effectively from home. So if we really want the employees to work from home, we have to equip them with the necessary tools, right? And if the employees needs better internet connection, then the company needs to explore how they can support the employees, right? And the third point I like to raise is work-life balance. A lot of people think that when you start to work from home, you have better work-life balance. In fact, the opposite is true. You have less work-life balance because companies, employees, colleagues thinks they can connect with each other 24/7 now because you're working from home. Working late till at night is becoming a normal when you're working from home, right? So I think we need to be conscious and not set meetings after the working hours, and not on weekends or public holidays, right? And there are little things that you can do to wow your employees. I mean, I myself was wow when suddenly one day I got a food parcel delivered to me. It was a very nice surprise, and it was a very pleasant surprise by my boss to appreciate, you know, my continuous support while working from home, you know.
Yeah.
So having received that parcel, I did the same to my direct reports, and they are also very, very happy. So these small gestures go a long way in motivating the employee.
Yeah, and I can agree and attest to that, because you know I was also part of the receiving end of receiving a box of cake from my colleagues as well at Endeavour Malaysia. So you guys pointed out some really good points. We have another question that came in. So so how should companies keep track of employees' performance while working from home? So perhaps Chen can start.
Okay, yeah. So I think back, prior to even MCO, I think we have always tracked performance digitally, right? So I think we have a lot of dashboards and everything. So I think for this, I think it was not as much shift for us, because we already do all kind of the trackings across board digitally on spreadsheets and everything, and then internal reportings, automated reportings and stuff. So I think that one, it was not as much shifting, but I think the key is that also trust, right? So I think that when people were working in office, the same trust, I think, is given to people working from home, right? So if you can't trust the person, maybe that employee may not be suitable for the company, right? So I think in the end, I think the key would, because there's almost no way that you will be able to find out whether the person is taking a nap of 20 minutes at home. Yeah. Right? And of course, there's also the other way, right? Because I think what David pointed out, people actually work longer hours. Right? I still remember the first few days of MCO where there's just so much change. The few days I forgot my lunch. And I think so trying to make it a point where if I have a call in the close to lunchtime or evening time, I will try to make it a point to remind the team and say, you don't forget your lunch, don't forget your dinner. Right? For me, sometimes just saying that, but quite a few people actually remember that, right? That simple reminder that remember to eat, because it's just something that we just got onto it, right? So I think the performances, because the measure of performance will be shifted for some bit. Let's say, example, if you're salespeople that go out for meetings, so some of the metrics no longer works, right? Because back then, it's how many meetings you do face to face. So right now, some of it will be shifted, and some of the people couldn't meet some target because of certain circumstances that are out of the control. So I think you need to shift on what you measure. But I think those kind of things still the same. And actually, one thing to be shifted is back then we do a lot of performance tracking on weekly. We actually moved to hourly and daily. Weekly, the catch up as well. Like we used to do weekly business review, we move into daily business review. And I think post MCO, we will continue daily business review.
Yeah. Okay. David, what was your experience like then in keeping track of employees' performance while they are working from home?
I think today employees are measured by their by performance, by their output, not so much on how many hours they clock in the office. So whether they are working from home or working from office, I think the same measurement applies, which is by performance. And therefore, if a salesperson is going to sleep half the day, but still deliver the revenue numbers for me, I'm okay. I'm fine. I don't need to see the salesperson as long as he brings in his revenue numbers. Same for finance, same for operations, same for HR. As long as they deliver their KPIs, then they can work from home. It's not an issue, and I don't need to monitor them.
Yeah. Okay, thanks so much for sharing. So we have another question. So I think, David, you've mentioned something. You mentioned a little bit about using technology to engage with clients and using technology in work, and like what you have mentioned, about providing like stable, say for example, like providing stable internet connection for your employees in getting their work done. So there's a question that came in on how should the organizations then think about the digital capabilities within their organization, right, in navigating through those changes. So I think for certain organizations, it is very natural to have your video conferencing applications and things like that set up, but then for some it's not. So what are some of the capabilities that you think an organization should have digitally?
Well, I think today there are a few platforms for us to connect internally and with external. And I think today we are using Zoom, and Zoom has worked out very well for a lot of organizations. But some organizations have concerns with the security of Zoom, so they have opted other platforms. But I think to invest in one of these applications, I think is really key, right? And it's going to be the new norm, right? But this again does not replace face-to-face engagement that are very much needed as well. So I think not everything can be done digitally, but companies, if they can afford, they need to invest in a digital platform. That's my view. Yeah.
Okay, Chen Chow, because Fave works with many merchants, and I think during MCO, for some of the merchants, some of them, they are forced to either move their sales and platform online, or they don't sell at all. So, how do you think that, for, say, for example, like a merchant in the roadside selling, say, for example, like nasi lemak, to, move on, to think about the digital strategy, right? So what's your take on that?
Yeah, so I think first is that I think as the MCO happens, I think reality hits that. I think that we see, I think a bunch of, I think earlier they were pre-MCO, there were a bunch of early adopters, but there's a lot of people that think that they don't need it, right? Because I think, let's say, thinking about the sellers, some of them like would tell us that, oh, I've been doing my business for the last 2 years like this, I don't need, right? I think I still remember she telling us that, oh, I'm already 60 plus years old, I no longer, I have a few more years to do, I have enough, I don't need. So I think that would be that group. But I think that as we go on this is that I think where everyone has to do it, I think it accelerates. So let's say example, digital signature. So I think prior to MCO, we have always wanted the businesses, and maybe even our team, to do signatures across when we go with businesses, right? So the adoption was maybe 50% or so prior to this. And I would say some of it also because due to our internal team, think that still feel more comfortable to get a physical signature. But if you think of the physical signatures, you have to go meet the person, there's a time spent, everything, right? So during MCO, we were able to move 100% to digital signatures. And I think moving forward on this, it will be fully digital signature, right? So I think that is one of the aspects that I think building on. I think the statements, the merchants, everything is already digital. So I think that part is that much. Let's say example, even like cashless payment, we started seeing quite a lot of brands started embarking on. Right? Let's say things like home previously they do it, they now went on cashless. TGIF went on it, the chicken rice shop, and a bunch of those, right? So I think we managed to open up quite a few of these brands that were previously not on digital. So I think it's taking the step through, and I think people think, okay, now is the right time to go on it, right? And I think that will be where it will go. And I think that for us, in the next 3 months as well, we'll be working very closely with Finance Ministry and MDEC as well. So in the Penjana projects, the Penjana initiatives that the MOF has, I think they basically want, two of the initiatives was to get micro and SME as to go digitalized, and the other one is Shop Malaysia Online. So I think Fave is honored that we are selected as the platform to partner with MOF and MDEC for that. So I think there will be a lot of initiatives to work with businesses to get them digitalized, right? To get them on board on it. And I think that will be hopefully be able to stimulate more businesses to come on board.
Yeah. Thanks so much for sharing, Chen Chow. We would like to close this session off with a final question. So we have a question from John. So it is difficult keeping track of the various authorities, SOPs, which businesses are required to comply. So they're just wondering, if there's like a central web page, that consolidates all the information on the sectors that can be open.
I think Majlis Keselamatan Negara would have the best listing on that. I think the official listing is that. I think, and also Majlis Keselamatan Negara, I think they have a Telegram group as well. But I think within the sector, so let's say example within the F&B, there were more than 1,000 F&B owners including plus the people, platform players like us. I think we are there together. So I think a lot of it is interchange and connect through. But I think official side, I think will be Malaysia's
Yeah. Thanks so much, Chen Chow. So just to conclude our session, we've discussed a lot about what the new normal will look like, that that more businesses will move digitally, and it is imperative for businesses to not only think about change externally, but to think about how they change internally to adapt to the external environment. And some of the points that were pointed out includes agility, that the business will need to think about how they can take advantage of this particular crisis. Like Chen Chow, you've mentioned how that probably this could be the right time for businesses to go digital, and I think internally, that communication is very important. Like, David, you have pointed out that, transparency and setting that clear objective with your employees would be very important to understand what is the purpose behind those changes. And thirdly, communication is key. That transparent communication would be very important to define those changes to the employees, and having data to back up those decisions by the management as well. And finally, empathy is crucial in helping everybody to get through these changes. So I would like to thank David for spending your time with us and sharing your insights and your experience in leading international SOS, and also Chen Chow as well. So thank you so much, everybody, for attending this particular session. I personally have thoroughly enjoyed the whole discussion, and I hope that the speakers will enjoying themselves as well in discussing this particular topic. Over to you, Fee.
Okay, thank you everyone. Thank you, Calvin. Just to answer John Martin, sorry, you could also subscribe to BMCC newsletter. We always provide the latest members update, and we get credible news and updates from relevant government agencies as well. So we have, people are dependent on our newsletter. Just go on our website, subscribe. So just to summarize, BMCC and Endeavour are two separate organizations, but we share one similar goal, which is to provide relevant kind of support to all businesses, any kind of businesses from small to large organizations, through our services, expertise, and also our broad network. So if you would like to reach out to us, please do so. We welcome you with open arms. And so thank you very much, everyone. Thank you for tuning in. We shall have a next webinar soon. We will keep you posted on our social media. Thank you, David, Chen Chow, and Kelvin.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you. Bye-bye. Have a good day.
You too.